Classical guitar, the ancestor of all modern guitars, and almost every body shape you see today traces back to one man's workshop in the 1850s in Spain. Antonio de Torres Jurado standardized the body dimensions, fan bracing, and scale length that classical guitars still use. Andres Segovia brought it into concert halls in the early 20th century and turned it into a serious solo instrument. Classical guitar is the only type where using a pick is completely forbidden. The right hand's fingernails act as the pick players file and polish them before every performance. A broken nail the night before a concert is a genuine emergency among professionals. How much do you think such a small detail can affect a musician's career? 6 strings, 3 nylon, 3 metal wound nylon, tuned EADGB. Solid wood throughout separates a quality instrument from laminate immediately. Top makers: Jose Ramirez, Alhambra, Cordoba. Classical music and flamenco are its primary homes, almost always solo. Bossa Nova also built around it. Ju Gilberto's restrained picking comes directly from classical technique. Paco de Lucia merged flamenco with classical training and changed both traditions. Steel string acoustic guitar, the most widely played guitar in the world, in bedrooms, at campfires, and on stadium stages. European immigrants brought gut string guitars to America in the late 1800s, and American makers replaced gut with steel strings, producing a louder, brighter sound. Martin Guitar Company standardized the flat-top design to the early 20th century, and it became the default acoustic guitar worldwide. A steel string acoustic projects roughly twice the volume of a classical guitar with no amplification. Performers in the early 1900s needed to cut through loud crowds, and the gut string guitar wasn't doing it. Steel strings solved that permanently. Do you think the guitar would have survived as a popular instrument without that change? 6 steel strings tuned EADGB, played with fingers or a pick. Solid wood over laminate is the key quality indicator. Martin D28 and Gibson J45 are among the most recognized and copied models in history. Folk, country, pop, blues, singer-songwriter, the steel string covers almost every acoustic genre. Robert Johnson, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, and Ed Sheeran all built careers around it. Archtop and Semi-Hollow guitar. The guitar jazz chose built differently from everything before it because flat tops weren't loud enough for dance halls. Orville Gibson borrowed the arched top principle from violins in the 1890s to increase projection. Lloyd Loar refined it at Gibson in the 1920s, and jazz musicians adopted it quickly. When pickups arrived in the 1930s, builders reduced body depth to control feedback, producing the semi-hollow format still used today. Before the archtop, the guitar was too quiet to hold its place alongside horns and piano in a live ensemble. It was the first guitar designed specifically for professional ensemble performance. Which guitar do you think had the biggest impact on jazz? The top is arched spruce or maple, back and sides typically maple. Semi-hollow models add a solid center block to reduce feedback. Gibson ES 175, ES 335, and L5 are the most recognized models. Jazz is the archtop's natural home, producing the warm, rounded tone that defines bebop and swing rhythm playing. The semi-hollow expanded into rock and blues. B.B. King's ES 355 and Chuck Berry's ES 350T both belong to this family. Resonator Guitar. Built before electricity existed, a guitar engineered to be louder by replacing the wooden soundboard with metal. In the late 1920s, blues and Hawaiian guitarists needed more volume and amplification didn't exist yet. John Del Piero solved it in 1927 by fitting a metal cone inside the body that transferred string vibration mechanically. When electric amplification came, the volume advantage disappeared, but the distinctive tone made it irreplaceable in certain styles. The resonator works on the same principle as a loudspeaker: mechanical vibration transfer, not air resonating in a wood box. It's one of the few acoustic instruments designed entirely around an engineering problem. Would you have thought to put a metal cone inside a wooden guitar body? Bodies are steel or brass, played with a metal or glass slide. The metal construction produces a bright, cutting, slightly nasal tone. National and Dobro are the two most recognized makers. Delta blues guitarists adopted it for slide playing. Robert Johnson and Son House both played them. Bluegrass claimed the dobro as a core instrument, filling the high melodic space between fiddle and banjo. Lap steel and pedal steel guitar, two instruments that look nothing like a conventional guitar, played horizontally, never fretted with fingers, always sliding. The lap steel originated in Hawaii in the late 1800s, when musicians began pressing a metal bar against the strings instead of fretting them. In 1932, Rickenbacker produced the first electric lap steel, also the first electric stringed instrument ever built. Engineers added foot pedals and knee levers in the 1940s that could change string pitches mid-chord, and the pedal steel was born. The pedal steel can alter the pitch of individual strings while sustaining a chord. No other guitar type can do this. That single capability produces the bending, crying sound that defines classic country music. Can you name a country song where you can clearly pick out the pedal steel? Lap steels have 6 to 8 strings and a solid body. Pedal steels have 10 strings per neck with a mechanical pedal and knee lever system. Both are played with a metal bar and finger picks. Hawaiian music built around the lap steel from the beginning. The pedal steel became Nashville's defining sound from the 1950s onward, filling the emotional space between vocals with long bending notes. Electric solid body guitar. The guitar that reshaped popular music more than any other instrument in the 20th century, and it started as a solution to a feedback problem. By the late 1940s, amplified archtop guitars fed back uncontrollably at high volumes. Leo Fender's response was to use solid wood and remove the hollow body. The Broadcaster, released in 1950 and soon renamed the Telecaster, was the first commercially successful solid-body electric. Gibson responded with the Les Paul in 1952, and the two defined the main electric guitar approaches that still compete today. When the Telecaster launched, established guitar makers called it a crude plank. Gibson's president reportedly called it a canoe paddle. Both became two of the most valuable and imitated guitars ever made. What does that say about how industries react to genuinely new ideas? Solid body is typically alder, ash, or mahogany. 6 steel strings, tuned EADGB, played with a pick. The Fender Telecaster, Stratocaster, and Gibson Les Paul are the 3 most produced and copied electric guitar models in history. Rock, blues, country, metal, punk, the solid body covers more genres than any other type. Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Kurt Cobain, and David Gilmour each found a completely different use for the same basic instrument. Bass guitar. Every song that ever made you feel something in your chest. That was probably the bass guitar. Before 1951, bass lines were played on the upright double bass, a large instrument hard to transport and amplify. Leo Fender designed the precision bass to fix that. A solid-body electric that could be played like a guitar and carried to any gig. Within a decade, the upright bass had almost disappeared from popular music. The bass is the least noticed and most essential instrument in popular music. Most listeners can't identify it in a mix, but remove it and the track collapses. Try this. Listen to your favorite song and focus only on the bass. What do you actually hear? 4 strings tuned EAD 1 octave below the guitar. Played with fingers, a pick, or slap technique. The Fender Precision Bass and Jazz Bass are the 2 most copied bass designs ever built. The bass anchors the rhythm section by locking with the kick drum. In funk, it becomes a lead melodic instrument. In reggae, it carries the primary groove. James Jamerson, John Entwistle, and Flea each represent a different extreme of what the instrument can do. 12-string guitar. Double the strings, double the sound. But it doesn't just get louder, it sounds like something else entirely. The 12-string dates to the late 19th century, likely developed among immigrant musicians who doubled strings for volume before amplification existed. It stayed a folk instrument until the 1960s when the Bards brought it into popular music. Roger McGuinn's Rickenbacker 12-string on their 1965 recordings defined a sound producers have been chasing ever since. A 12-string is tuned in pairs, each string matched with a second tuned 1 octave higher or in unison. When strummed, the two strings hit at slightly different moments, producing a natural chorus effect with no electronics. Have you ever heard a 12-string and mistaken it for two guitars at once? 12 strings in 6 pairs, tuned EADGB. The doubled strings create more tension, requiring stronger internal bracing. The Rickenbacker 360-12 is among the most copied electric 12 strings ever made. Folk and rock are its primary genres. Acoustically, it fills arrangements with a shimmering sound without needing a second guitar. Electrically, it produces the jangly tone of 1960s rock. Jimmy Page, Tom Petty, and John Denver each built parts of their sound around it. Every one of these guitars solved a problem someone had: too quiet, too much feedback, not enough sustain. Which of these surprised you the most? Leave it in the comments.